Hello, everyone. Welcome to our May Catholic Prison Ministry Coalition webinar. I'm Father George Williams for the CPMC. And today we're going to be talking about a very important and often overlooked topic, which is the issues that face women who are re-entering from the criminal justice system, re-entering into the community. We have with us three staff members from the Angela House. Maureen O'Connell, our Dominican sister, founded the Angela House in 2001 to serve women who were coming out of incarceration. After 13 years as a work experience as a Chicago police officer and police chaplain, 16 years as clinical services coordinator for the Children's Assessment Center in Houston and victims assistant coordinator for the Archdiocese of Galveston, Houston, and more than 40 years as a Dominican sister, which is, as you know, the Dominicans are known for their commitment to social justice. Maureen brings a wealth of experience into this field, and we're looking forward to her sharing with us her experience and wisdom. We also have with us Sarah Mabry, who is a case manager at Angela House. She's been there since December 2018 as a staff member. She's a licensed chemical dependency counselor, intern, as well as a certified prevention specialist. In her work, she helps the residents develop independent living skills, provide support in their sobriety and recovery, and guidance with resources available to them. And she's very active in the Houston recovery community. We also have with us Teresa Doyle, who's a licensed counselor and substance abuse counselor at Angela House. So welcome to three of you and to all of our attendees today. It's great to have you with us. And Maureen, would you like to start?
Thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity. This whole area of women and women in reentry is an area that has been certainly of interest to me for a number of years. As Father Williams mentioned, you know, I'm a social worker by training and have had experience both in law enforcement and in working with people, mostly with people where child abuse and child sexual abuse has been the presenting problem. So as I moved out of that ministry, it became apparent to me that there was another segment of the population that I might have some interest in working with, because my goal always in working with families where children are abused was always recognizing the need for some intervention for these kiddos, that if we didn't provide an opportunity for them to heal, that they were certainly going to, you know, go on through life with that same kind of woundedness. What I knew is that probably 85% of the women who are incarcerated have experienced at some time in their life either physical or sexual abuse. And so it made sense to me to look to that next step. You know, how might I be able to work with women who were formerly incarcerated and are coming out of incarceration? And so that's really how Angela House started. I spent about a year going up to the women's prison up in Gatesville here in Texas, and did volunteer work as a volunteer chaplain just to figure out kind of what it was that women needed. And I'll tell you that my first goal was I thought that I could develop some kind of a mentoring program that we could work. The parish that I was involved with was very active and interested in social justice issues. So I thought that we could connect our women coming out of prison with people from the parish who might be able to act as mentors for them. Well, it didn't take me long to figure out, going up to the prison, that women didn't really need mentoring when they came out. They needed a safe place to live. You know, almost without exception, every woman who was on her second or third time around in the state prison system reported that, you know, if I had had a safe place to live, if I had been able to change the people, places, and things, those same old stories, that maybe things would have been different for me. And so I kind of took a step back and said, well, maybe I need to refigure my brilliant idea and see if we couldn't come up with some kind of a housing program. And so that's what I did. We started out as a program of the St. Vincent de Paul Society here in Houston. My experience is often St. Vincent de Paul programs work with people who are incarcerated or coming out of incarceration. That was not the experience here in Houston. So St. Vincent de Paul had a housing facility for homeless families and families at risk of being homeless. And so we took 3 of the units, the duplex units they had up there, and tried to kind of massage them to serve our women. Now, my illusion was that I was going to be the not only start this program, but that I would also be the therapist. Well, it didn't take me long to figure out that there was no way that I could be the grant writer, the maintenance person, the driver, and the therapist. And so I looked around and I found that my dear friend and colleague from many years back, Teresa Doyle, was somebody that I could call on. And so Teresa, I'm kind of laughing because we called on Teresa about 5 minutes ago to ask her to join us in this panel. And that's a little bit the way Teresa got hooked into Angela House 20 years ago. I remember on Saturday morning at breakfast, and I said, hey, how about? So I think that again, the idea is that I think the nice way to say it would be that we kind of grew sort of like Topsy, but we grew in response to the needs of the women. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, is the issue that certainly I know brings everybody here today, but the issue that continues to challenge, because although the number of women incarcerated continues to grow exponentially, this programming for women coming out of prison in no way matches the number of women incarcerated. And so the challenge for us, I think, as a society is, how do we do this? How do we serve women? What happens, and there's research to this, that a man goes to prison and he continues to not only make contact with his mom and his auntie and his grandmother, but a number of other people on the outside who will continue to support him, send money and put money on his books. That's not the case for women. It doesn't take long for a woman to get disconnected from family for a variety of reasons. I think one of the things, and this it's so strange to me that last Sunday was Mother's Day, and here we are on Wednesday talking about women in reentry, because I think that that's part of the problem, is that we don't have patience for women who are someone's mother or someone's daughter to get herself in trouble and get into prison. And so it doesn't take long for women to get disconnected from the community once they're incarcerated. So, what was the goal at Angela House? It was really to give women a safe place to live, to provide them with the kind of tools that if they had them earlier on, they probably wouldn't have gotten themselves incarcerated. So one of the major goals, of course, was to provide therapy and an opportunity to heal. If we say that 85% of these women have experienced some kind of physical or sexual abuse, what opportunity have they had to heal from that experience? So our goal from the outset was safety and then tools. What do women need? We're a sobriety community. Many of our women suffer from substance abuse. That's often coupled with mental health issues and the need to kind of self-medicate. It's a whole lot easier if I can't get into the mental health system, which I don't know about anybody else in the country, but Texas has, we don't have what one would call a robust mental health services for people in need, and particularly for people who are people of color, people who are poor, people who've been incarcerated. All of those things kind of go, hand in hand.
It's not only not robust, it is sadly lacking in the state of Texas.
Okay. So, and the other part, and what that reminds me too, is that, when women are released from prison or from incarceration, often they end up homeless because they have nowhere to go. They don't have family because they've already been disconnected from them. They might have mental health issues that have added to that family rupture. And so they end up on the street homeless. And because we have a situation in terms of not having services again for homeless folk, they end up right back in jail and in prison again. So it's this never-ending cycle that we really work hard at Angela House to intervene on. So again, programming. One of the things that when women are released from prison, they're released from jail, they're released. In the day when we first started, they used to get out in a white jumpsuit, a blue paper jumpsuit. Well, when you're released at 11 o'clock at night, downtown Houston, and or cutting out of the bus station, it's real clear who you are and where you've come from. So again, it puts them at risk over and over and over again for any number of things to happen. And one of them, of course, is to get right back into prison again or into jail. I could go on, but I realized that I have two other people here. So what I'd like to do is, Sarah, maybe you could talk a little bit about your experience, how you came to Angela House, and then Teresa can give her perspectives on this.
Okay. And Sarah, before you start, I just wanted to let our attendees know that if you have any questions for any of our panelists, please write them in your chat feature on the bottom of your screen, or in the question and answer, and that way I can address your question to one of our panelists. So sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
That's fine. Okay, so my name is Sarah Mabry, and I am the case manager at Angela House. But what I was going to do is just tell a little bit, because in addition to that, I was also a client at Angela House roughly 7.5 years ago. So I was just going to tell a short little segment about my journey to get here, and then my journey while what Angela House did for me, and what my position today is. So my introduction to drugs and alcohol began at the age of 16. By the age of 19, I was in prison and would spend the next 8 years there. I was released in 1998. And I fell back into the same people and same places. So over the next 14 years, I would be in and out of various rehabs, jails, and institutions. In 2012, I lost my business, and my addiction really spiraled out of control. And I spent the next year homeless and addicted, in and out of jail. In 2013, I was back in jail, and I had, looking through the pamphlet in the jail, this is kind of where my journey started at Angela House, because they give you a booklet of resources when you're in jail, and Angela House was in the back of them. And at that point, my mom was pretty much done paying for institutions that I wasn't applying. And so I was looking in the back of the book, and I needed a place to go because I was going to be out on the street homeless. And a couple of women talked about other programs in there, but I didn't really hear about anyone speaking about Angela House. So to me, that showed me that those women don't go back to jail. That was the place I needed to be at, because I didn't have anybody there to vouch for it in the company that I was in, which was a good sign for me. So in October 2013, I was accepted to Angela House. And like Sister said, they released us at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm grateful that this was, my mom was giving me one more chance at this and picked me up and brought me to Angela House. From the moment I walked through the doors of Angela House, my life was forever changed. Angela House for me was a place that taught me that achieving true sobriety is much more than abstaining from drugs and alcohol. It was about healing my soul through classes, and that the program that we have here, especially with Teresa, it was making amends for the damage I've caused. And mainly those amends began with myself. Like, it was learning how to live and forgive myself for the things that I've done. Shame is a huge part of relapse and of continuing to go to jail. Angela House is a place that I've found a conscious contact with God. And I've always heard of God, but I never was able to get a conscious contact with him. it also was a place that helped me to understand that in order to keep this, I needed to give it back. November 2014, I moved out of Angela House and with a huge new community of support and recovery. In 2016, I made the decision to give back and help others who suffer from the disease of alcohol and addiction by going back to school to become a licensed chemical dependency counselor. I graduated in 2018 with a GPA of 3.86, and I was on the dean's list. I was I'm incredibly grateful for the journey that Angela House was put me on. I've been in and out of programs. This was the one, and I don't mean to say this in a derogatory, free program that was offered to me that just like embraced me and showed me how to love myself to where I can get back on track. December of 2018, I was offered the position of case manager at Angela House, and I jumped on the opportunity. What a gift it has been given to me to have the opportunity to come back to an organization that saved my life and helped me help other women get on the path of freedom from addiction and incarceration. If I were able to like sum Angela House up in one word, it would be hope and gratitude. Sister Teresa and everybody else that's on the board at Angela House, they inspire every woman that walks through the door that your journey is to be rewritten from here on out. Your past is a past and everybody can change. I'm honored to work here. What I do as a case manager is I connect the women to resources. And that includes, it's a struggle to find employment for women once they've left incarceration and housing. So we work on that. And in addition to that, staying sober and building up a new community of people around you. And I'm going to leave that right there. And I'm going to let Teresa talk more about the program of what she does and how she does it.
Well, as Sister Maureen said earlier, my being at Angela House was kind of a fluke, but then not a fluke. I started with the idea of I would just go in and do individual therapy with the women. And shortly after being there, it was like that was not enough for me because then I didn't really know what was going on in the house. So then I started a process group, and I'm not sure how many years ago, maybe 12, 13 years ago, I introduced the Shame Resilience class based on Brene Brown's first book. And I think Sarah did mention how shame is such a huge component for these women's lives, associated with all the trauma. And Sister Maureen mentioned earlier, I think you said 75 to 80%. I don't know about those statistics and where they come from. My experience over the last almost 19 years at Angela House has been 99.9% of the women have experienced trauma. And whether it was what got them into the drugs or once they were into the drugs, they're exposed to a lot more trauma. And it just compounds itself over and over. So my work is to meet with each woman where they're at and what they're capable of doing, and trying to build some kind of trust. And I did not consider myself any type of expert regarding women who were incarcerated. I probably could say I have a little more expertise 19 years later, and it has become a passion. It is a passion of mine. And like Sarah said, I feel blessed, and I am very clear about how often I use that term, which is not very often, to be a part of the Angela House and the women's lives here. So I think that's my role. And, along with everything else at Angela House, when Sister Maureen was saying something about, being the the driver, and she did plumbing. And it's like, our roles don't come in this nice, neat little box. I would never drive my private clients anywhere. I drive the women, I take them to doctor's appointments, I've picked them up from jail, and, I'll buy a pack of cigarettes. I'll do what, no, I take that back. Sister Maureen's face but when they're first out of incarceration, and they can go a whole year without smoking, the first thing they want is to smoke a cigarette, which is unfortunate because I'm a really horrible reformed smoker. So anyway, I just, pardon me?
And a hamburger, a cigarette and a hamburger.
I do. So I just felt like I knew most of them had been up all night waiting to get out, at least in Harris County Jail. And they're not given breakfast or anything in the morning. So they're pretty much starving by the time we get to them. So I take them to my favorite place, which is Whataburger. And we all go there. And I work closely. I'm an LPC and an LMFT and also an LCDC. So even though Sarah covers a lot of the addiction issues, that's also a big focus for me. And again, how the addiction and trauma go hand in hand. And you can't really treat one without the other. So I don't know if I answered.
Yeah, Teresa, Teresa, what is the name of the book by Brené Brown?
I thought it was just me, but it's not.
Yep.
This is my copy of the book.
That's how my copy looks.
And I haven't bought a new one. I keep ordering them because I just ordered 5 more to be delivered today because we have new women here. And I also, while I was still able to go into Harris County Jail, I taught the shame resilience course inside the jail. I did not give everybody a book there, but I do give women a book here, so they can have that.
We've had a number of questions and comments during, as you've been talking. One person wanted to know, what does Angela House need most to sustain the ministry at this point?
Money.
Besides money, of course, yeah.
I think part of the struggle right now is this COVID thing, trying to do things, virtually. But I mean, I think our hope is that someday we'll have next step housing. I mean, we'd like to be able to give the women that next step, which we know is so critical for them.
And to build up renters history. I mean, it's so they stay here. They can stay here up to a year if they choose to. But one of the problems is that they're not paying. So having a next step housing would help them build up renters' credibility for it's really hard to get accepted in apartment complexes in the neighborhoods that we want to live in.
Yes.
Of housing, somebody wanted to know, well, how do you go about finding housing, and can you explain a little more what next step housing would look like?
But you want to explain?
If I had my way, next step housing would be another house here on the property with Angela House that the women could move into and have more freedom. But again, that takes a lot of money and a lot of people working together to make that happen.
So the opportunity, it's just hit or miss. I was very fortunate. I don't know if you mind me telling a story, but I told Sister Maureen, because when I was living here, my background is in graphic design and printing. And so I started working at a printing company over in River Oaks. And I told Sister Maureen, I'm moving to River Oaks, which is a predominant neighborhood in Houston. And she was like, oh, okay, let's see how that works out.
Wealthy neighborhood.
But I mean, this is how if things work out and there's opportunities that were laid out. So In order to do so, I applied this apartment complex. The landlord got back to me and he said, we're willing to rent to you, but you need to pay a double deposit and your first and last month's rent, which would be $2,800. But I stayed in that, which gratefully from working here and staying here, I was able to save that money because we don't charge the women at all to live here. Once they're working, they save their money so they can have something when they move out and to get their lives back together. So I had that money.
To be honest, we forced them to save their money.
Yeah, we did.
I was just, in the interest of full disclosure.
Yeah, 75%.
The program requires that when the women begin to work, they get to keep 25% of their income, and the other 75% goes into a savings account for them. Now, historically, when women come back, they will always say, and sister took my money. I did take their money, but then I gave it back to them. So we do have a program of financial literacy. We try to help the women to clear up their horrible credit background. But again, the idea is to be able to really go out with something that's going to support you and not have to worry about the first time I miss a paycheck, I'm going to get evicted.
Yeah.
I've got two questions here. And my sense is a lot of our attendees today are interested in what you're doing, but they're also looking at pretty much a barren landscape where this doesn't exist and would want to begin. So what are some of the first steps? And along those lines, how would somebody want to know, since a lot of the issues and the traumas that the women experience begin in their teen years, how can you speak to how do we break that chain, and which is basically a pipeline to prison for many of them?
Mm-hmm.
Well, earlier I had talked about the program here in the Archdiocese, our special youth services, where we have volunteers who go into all of the facilities that work with teens and with young people. And the idea is to be able to give them the kind of support they need and to be able to help them not continue to carry that with them. Unfortunately, fortunately for young kids here in the Archdiocese, we have a great program, but that is not the case in many other places. And even at that, we only touch a small portion of the kids who, get themselves caught up into the criminal justice system.
So if you had nothing going on in your diocese or your local town, where would you begin? What would be the first steps?
Well, my old social worker background, and what my first thing I did was to go to do a needs assessment, kind of. I found, as I said earlier, I thought I was going to do this mentoring program until I found out the needs of the women. They didn't need a mentor. They needed someplace safe to live. So I would think the first thing is to find out what is available. And then who are the people who are going to support this? Is it law enforcement? Is it the criminal justice system? Is it your church community? I think that many people, once they hear the story, they say, oh, I didn't know that was the case. So I think part of it has to do with educating the community and helping them to see that there really is a need here and that these are really human beings. They're not just some evil doers who have been incarcerated. I'm not even going to go. The history of law enforcement and the history of the criminal justice system, all that stuff impinges on what communities are able to do. So part of it is inviting the community to participate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I know when Angel House first moved to our current location, we were not welcomed in the neighborhood. And people were very vocal at the church next door about not wanting people like this to be here. And after a few years, we've had people come from the neighborhood saying, I didn't know what this place was. I have a sister, I have a daughter. And so the stigma changed a little bit, and their own shame about what was going on with a family member could be addressed a little more. And then they saw our women walking in the neighborhood, trying to get some exercise. And they were like, hey, can we walk with them? And it just depends on what time of year it is, whether we're going to be walking. So it has been difficult at times, but then when people can get on board, I think the people who have volunteered here are our biggest supporters. And they come back, whether it's to teach a class, to bring, clothing for the women, or Christmas bags. They're always here once they're on board, but that takes a lot of groundwork to make that happen.
Okay, Sarah, did you want to add anything to that?
Oh, no, I was just agreeing absolutely with what she was saying.
Somebody
I was actually reading Mike's question, and that's what I was shaking my head to. He asked if you think spirituality. Well, sorry, I don't want to.
How do you find spirituality as an important factor in successful reentry? That's a good question.
It's
And along those lines, what's the role of the Catholic Church in all of this at your place?
Well, I think at the beginning, we required that our women participate in some kind of a faith community. Doesn't matter what it is. But my own history and experience with substance abuse treatment and issues around reentry is that you need something to hang on to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we had a woman once who said to me, "Sister, I don't go to church. I wouldn't even know what to do if I had to go to a church." I said, "Well, okay, would you want to go with the other women?" Nope. So we dropped her off in the park. And I said, but what I'm going to talk to you about tomorrow on Monday when I come back is what you watched while you were in the park. And then I prayed, please God, let her watch the birds and the bees and not anything else. But anyway, that went for about 1 or 2 weeks. And then finally one day she said, I think I could go to church. I think I could go with the women, because what she saw is that they were going and participating in another community. They were getting something, whether it was a free lunch or a purse or whatever, but that there was something there. And so I think it's important that there be some spiritual dimension. Doesn't have to be Catholic. We are supported by the Archdiocese, where we're not only do we get funding from the Diocesan Service Fund, but we have a number of parishes and other groups. But we also have a number of Methodist churches and synagogues and other faith communities who also participate and support us. So although we're kind of Catholic, we're just kind of Catholic.
Okay. I have a question for all of you, and that is here at the parish that I'm now the pastor, we would really like to be a welcoming parish for men and women coming out of prison, but people don't know how. So do you have any suggestions for training, let's stick to Catholic parishes for now, preparing parishes to be communities of welcome that may not be used to having returning citizens?
I think about my own parish, where I was participating and active when we started Angela House. And it was the women's club. I went and told the story at the women's club, and then I brought a couple of women with me to the women's club. And then a couple of other women came to a luncheon that the women's club did. So, and again, it's the idea, I think, and our volunteers, once they come and see the face of another person. So in order to build a welcoming community, I think it's the same thing, not a big, here come the prisoners or, a big busload, but, to invite people to come and participate. And as the pastor, kind of who would be open and able to chat with somebody at coffee or whatever it might be. So I think that's the easiest way to start.
Well, I was also thinking, a friend of mine who is Jewish brought a group of women to Angela House years ago. And one of the women turned to one of our residents and said, "I've never met anybody who's been in prison before." And our resident said, "I've never met a Jewish person before." So that was the beginning, made in heaven. Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Just find the similarities and just hear that message of hope rather than stigmatism. I like labeling somebody. Just find the similarities in one another.
Well, I mean, I had to kind of deal with my own prejudice when I first started about women giving up their children. And I'm like, God, how do you do that? And then after listening to so many life stories from the women, I was like, they really, I mean, it was like, that was the best decision for that woman and those children and that family at the time. And it was like, it kind of finally clicked for me. And I was like, oh, it didn't need to be this big, oh my God, type of thing. But it was like, how do you get through life? And it was different from my life experience, but trying to understand the pain that was going on in the women's lives at the time and how out of control things were.
And that's another aspect of our program is a parent education. Teresa does a lot of work with the women about how to be a parent, because what happens often is the woman comes home and she wants to see the kids, and the kids are happy to see her, but they're not looking to her to be the disciplinarian or to be the boss. And so the first, thing that'll happen is they may have a visit, and then she's in Teresa's office. They were mean to me, or they wouldn't listen to me, and I didn't know what to do. And so we do lots of, let's slow this process down.
Mhm.
Let's remember that, it's going to take some time to kind of get back into the family. And then with the parent education classes, again, you may have been parented this way, but we know that this is not what we want to do moving forward. And so it's important. It's just another one of the, I hate to be so trite, but I mean, that's another one of the things for the toolbox. You got to learn how to be a parent, and you have to learn how to be a different kind of a parent than you were in the past.
Well, I had a client come to me recently here at Angela House who was talking about her 8-year-old daughter, and kind of her body was changing. And she's like, oh my God, how am I supposed to deal with this? So I ordered a book, and I said, we're going to read this book together. Then you're going to sit down and read it with your 8-year-old, because her body is changing and she needs to know about that. And I mean, for her, that's way too soon. I said, that's not what her body is telling her. So let's be on board with that. But go ahead.
There's maybe a more local question from one of your fellow Texans here, and they want to know, one, is there a safe house in Georgetown, Texas? And two, how do they start an Angela House with St. Vincent de Paul in Georgetown, Texas? Any suggestions?
There is a program in Kerrville, which is closer to Georgetown than we are here in Houston. And I'm going to struggle to remember the name, but again, that would be, it's part of the Episcopal Church it's a woman who's Episcopal, and it's part of the Episcopal Church in Kerrville, and I can't remember the name of it.
Oh, shoot.
Teresa?
I'm looking up. Hold on.
Okay. The problem is that is what you've seen of the three of us is that we don't have very good boundaries, but we also have a shared history that when one forgets, the other one remembers it, which is very helpful.
Or we just pull out our phones with Google. Hold on, I got this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, listen, while you're looking at that, somebody wants to know, what could prison chaplains do to prepare women who are going to be getting out soon for exit strategies?
At least the prison chaplains that I've worked with, they do a lot for the women. I mean, and reaching out and trying to find programs. I don't know, like for each and every person, but it is.
The only thing I would suggest is just to call and learn more about the programs. And see, make sure that person's the right fit for that various, because we have sometimes women apply for our program that Teresa and we discuss about, and they may not be a good fit for our program. But so maybe just educating themselves on the different programs in the area that person leaving incarceration wants to go into. Yeah.
I mean, because some programs are that are here already, maybe like Senecor, someplace, they don't want women on mental health medications. I would prefer that someone be taking their medication rather than saying, oh, I don't need them. And then they're going to relapse and end up using the street drugs.
Self-educating.
Yeah. So, but it's also finding the right fit. It's also, I think we were talking about as far as spirituality, but as far as working with addiction, I mean, there's some women who are definitely, I don't believe in God. I don't want to do this church thing. And then we try to find, whether it's smart recovery or other forms of recovery, just so that they have a connection with people who are different, who are clean, who are sober, who are trying to turn their lives around, or someone who is very Christ-centered. And there are programs that are, more about that. Of course, I just went blank on the name.
Celebrate Recovery.
Celebrate Recovery. I have the book behind me. Yeah. So it's, trying to find the right fit for each person. And I know this is the trite expression of trying to individualize a program, but that is exactly what you have to do. So trying to make it work for one person and thinking, oh, you got a cookie cutter going here, it's going to work for everybody, will not work. Even though everybody appreciates it, the women who live here, when it is individualized, when they don't get what they want and somebody else got something, then all of the sibling rivalry in the world comes out about how come so-and-so got to do blah, blah, blah. And then, trying to deal with that.
Somebody wants to know, and where they would begin to find in their particular states, where do you go to find out where programs like yours even exist?
Good question.
Well, I mean, again, Google, as far as, what's available for reentry.
Yeah.
Reentry services for women in the state of Texas or the state of Louisiana.
Well, one place they could call is the parole. A lot of times the parole offices know about the various agencies in the area that if you call them, if not, Google.
Well, the only concern I have about just doing it with parole is they have particular ones that are paid for. That's a direct link. Whereas we really had to work with parole for a while to say, oh, can we be considered approved? Actually, Maureen is the one who did that. Sister Maureen, pardon me, who did that, to get us even on the list for the parole people. And nobody had to pay us to have them come here.
Which also makes people suspicious. What do you mean they don't have to pay? Well, they don't. I mean, this is a ministry that's supported by the community, and it makes us crazy trying to raise money. But on the other hand, it's a place. It also gives that the message to women when they come: you're valuable. We care about you, and we don't want you to have to pay to be here. We want you to be able to get what it is that you need to be able to make a healthy reentry.
Yeah. I'm going back to the question that was probably one of the first questions about what do programs like ours need? And again, I'm thinking about volunteer groups who have come in and played bingo or done a barbecue with the women here, and how they join. So, and our women are just like, oh God, this is great. And I think that's, just if you know of a program, call and, bombard the person like Allison who works here and say, what can I do to volunteer? And we usually find a way to put somebody to work.
Yeah.
Speaking of work, something you had mentioned early on, and maybe before we actually started the webinar itself, is that all the women in your phase 2 program are currently working. Now, one of the problems I've seen with the men I know coming out of prison, because I've only worked with male prisoners here, is the issue around, how do they get jobs when they have on their record that they've just been in prison for 20 years? How do you help women find employment without the stigma of having been incarcerated?
Do you want me to answer that one?
Anyone.
Oh, okay. So, well, several of the women right now, I'll just speak for one employer, which is Mod Pizza. About 4 of our women are working for them right now, but how that initiated was they are a second chance employer. A lot of places say that they are second chance employers, and it kind of discriminates on the amount of time that they've been released from jail or prison. Well, and how this employer came about is one of our women went and worked there, and by her work performance, and she told about the program that she was in, and by her work performance, 3 other GMs from that same employer from My Pizza called me and said, how many other women do you have? Let's get them on board, you know? And so just and same thing with Katz's, a restaurant. We have several of our women working there as waitresses. And what it is what I try to communicate, you can get any job. It's how you sell yourself, and asking an employer to give you a chance. But until then, take the job that's in front of you to build up your resume until you can get that dream job.
Yeah.
And so we work with them around, you know, anything's possible, but you got to build up, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah. And I mean, there have been Phoenicia, a specialty restaurant, grocery store. They've worked with a number of our women. And actually we have someone who's a director of a department now over there, who, you know, when they want to donate food, they, you know, can donate food to us, and they do often.
I think it's to me, the key is the contact. It's the personal contact, whether you can meet with the GM of some store, or we have a woman who gets a job and she does well. But it's because, as Sarah said, you know, there are all kinds of perks for people who do second chance hiring. But the perk is always to the business. Yeah, not necessarily to the people that we're hoping to serve. So it just, to me, it makes much more sense to try to do the personal contact. George, I think it's another way, people in the parish. If you know people and you have people in your parish who own a business or have a grocery store or have a car wash, whatever it would be. Hey, I've got somebody who's looking for a job, and you know, I can speak for them. You know, I mean, I can't guarantee 100%, but I can tell you this is somebody who's interested in working. And it's another way to hook the parish or to the faith community into working with this population, you know.
And I think that not only does that extend to people as far as employment, but we have had dentists who have worked with our population for free when there was an emergency. Or to get them hooked up with their oral surgeon friends who could do things. Sister Maureen, you had someone, a woman dentist who was doing, you know, free exams and things like that for women here. And my brother, who was a retired dentist, would set up stuff for the women here with oral surgeons and orthodontists and people like that, and get the services for free. And again, it's just individual contact, and, you know, not being afraid to ask for help or ask for something for free. And my mother would be so proud of me, you know. She had 7 children, so it was always about getting the discount.
Somebody wants to know if you have any kind of group of your graduates, say alumni, who serve as mentors or a support group for the women currently in the program.
That kind of stopped with COVID. Right before COVID, we had a alumni group, and so we're in the works right now. Well, not right at this moment, but it's been rediscussed to get that group back up and going, where the alumni would come back and we would have a sit down, like family style dinner with the current residents. But that kind of, when COVID put a stop, COVID brought a lot of good and put a lot of stop to some programs. So we did, and it was put on hold by COVID, but we are working to get that back up and running.
Going back to the employment issue, somebody asked, can you help women get bonding for employment? Has that been an issue?
Bonding?
Yeah,
that's what I think that I don't.
We've never done anything like that. I mean, I know that there's. I'm not sure about Texas, to be perfectly honest. But I think the whole question of getting someone bonded in order to have a position that we've, Sarah, when you were welding.
We had a couple of programs where there was grants, or the restaurant paid for a internship like program for the women to be in, and then they end up hiring them afterwards. That was through a I can't even remember the place of it now. It's off the tip of my tongue. Tiny Boxes, was that it?
Tiny Boxwood, yeah.
Tiny Boxwood. So it's not necessarily bonding, but there was grant money that was given, and through the restaurant or from somebody giving us a certain amount of money to pay for the women to do internships in the positions, and they did very well and got hired on at those positions.
But in terms of any kind of, a bonding process, we've never been involved with that. No.
And how many women are there at Angela House now, and what's your capacity?
The capacity is 16. We are limited by the city ordinance. So 16 is the maximum number of women we can serve, because that's the license for the congregate living that we have for the building. Sarah, I wonder if we had a little clip of some of the women, but just even to throw up that first picture, if you would, people could kind of see the building. I need to go through the whole video, but just to kind of give people an idea. I don't know, George, what do you think?
Yeah, we have time if you want to show the video.
Can you see it?
Let's show the video.
Okay. Can you see it on your screen right now?
Nope.
Not yet.
Okay, hold on one second. Let me go back over here. All right. And this and that.
There you go.
There we go. Great. That's it.
Okay. You go ahead and play it?
Yeah.
Okay.
The reason I chose to come to Angela's house was because it was a place where I can get restoration and reconciliation with myself and with my family, and learn how to be a productive member in society and not returning back to the criminal justice system. I am very grateful and honored to be here because they only have 16 beds and I was chosen.
When you come from a place that's dark and there's no help and it seems like there's no other option, Angela's house gives you that option. They give you the options to help you stay clean. They help you make better choices. They help you improve your quality of living. They help give you a whole new mindset from the one that you came in with, because the one I came in with was very dark.
Angela's house has helped me tremendously. I was able to get all my documents, and now I'm a productive citizen in society today. I have reunited with my family, and I'm just really grateful to be here.
My life with my children, I didn't have a relationship with them. My family, I didn't have a relationship with them. I ended up being incarcerated. But since coming to Angela House, I've gained security, financial stability. I have a job now. I have some sisters in sobriety. We're a community and we love each other here at Angela House. And the staff here is excellent. They have compassion and they try to help us in any way that they can. I'm just real grateful to be here at Angela House.
The reason why I applied to Angela's house is because I want a better life for myself and I wanted to give my mom a break. She spent many years rescuing me and I wanted better for my life. I deserve better. I am better.
I just want to have a life, like a real life, instead of, the chaos that I was living in. And since I've been at Angela's house, I'm learning how to actually live and not just wait to die. And it's amazing here. And these girls here are incredible and so supportive. And I have a chance now that I didn't have before.
I came here to Angela's house because I deserve a second chance at life. Before Angela's house, my life was turmoil. For 5.5 years, I was in a dark place. Now I'm in a place full of light. I'm employed, and I have been for the last 30 days or more. And I am proud of myself today to be a resident of Angela. And I'm sober.
Prior to coming to Angela's house, my life was out of control and unmanageable. I battled with drug addiction for over 15 years. Being at Angela's house is the best decision I've ever made. Coming here has changed my life dramatically. I've gained control of my life back, and I'm now employed, and I'm doing great things with my life, and I no longer have to continue to live the way I lived before.
Coming from nothing and the experiences we have and what we have now, we just want to thank you guys so much, because without y'all, this wouldn't be here. This is amazing. And to think that people actually believe in us, that's the best thing we could have ever gotten. Thank you.
I deserve
this.
It's a beautiful video and perfect way to kind of finish up our time together today. Before we sign off, first of all, thank you all so much for your presence, and above all, for the work you're doing with these women. May God continue to bless you and them in this important work, so thank you. For our attendees, I just want a few announcements about our upcoming programs. We have on Thursday, May 20th, our next reentry town hall meeting. It's a new way of life with Susan Burton and Father Perry Henry.
Ooh.
And this is going to be a New Way of Life is an organization that advances multidimensional solutions to the effects of incarceration. They provide housing and support for formerly incarcerated women for successful community reentry, family reunification, and individual healing. They work to restore the civil rights of formerly incarcerated people, as well as empower, organize, and mobilize formerly incarcerated people as advocates for social change and personal transformation. So please join us for that. Really a continuation of the kind of work we've been talking about today. Wonderful work that they're doing. And that will be on Thursday, May 20th at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. The link will be on our CPMC website. And our next webinar is going to be in June, on June 9th, which is a Wednesday, again at 1 p.m. Eastern time or 10 a.m. Pacific time. And this will feature Joe Cotton from the Archdiocese of Seattle. And he also works now for the Catholic Prison Ministry Coalition. And he'll be with Franchelle Lee, the Director of Special Youth Services with the Archdiocese of Galveston, Houston. So we've got a Seattle-Houston thing going on there. So
That's great.
again, that information will be on our website on Catholic Prison Ministries Coalition. So thank you all for your participation, for your questions, and above all, thank you to our panelists today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.